Now today we're making some sweet potato baps. Now baps are very popular buns that you'll find in the UK, and it basically describes it as being a very soft roll. And today we're using sweet potato to encourage that softness and also to maintain moisture and extend the shelf life of this roll. And I've gone ahead and already roasted my sweet potato. And not only do these taste delicious because of the sweet potato and have great texture, we also have a beautiful color to our rolls as well. So all I did was just wrap it up in some foil and baked it in the oven. And I've just allowed that to cool as well. So you could do this ahead of time if you would like. Now with your sweet potato, you want to make sure that you weigh the flesh after it's been cooked. And I like to peel the skin off as well. You don't have to, but I really want a lot of that beautiful orange flesh. So once you have all of your sweet potato flesh in there, we can add our plant milk and water. And I've had this chilling in the fridge. Now we're just going to blend everything together until it's nice and smooth. Now you have your sweet potato smoothie done. We're going to transfer that into our bowl, and of course you can do all this by hand, just makes it much easier if you use a stand mixer. And you want to make sure you can get as much of that puree out as you can. Now to our sweet potato and plant milk and water, we're going to add our flour. And I'm using some bread flour today, or strong flour. And that's going to give us a nice lift, a nice rise to our dough. If you use an all-purpose flour, you're not going to get as much lift to your buns. So do use a bread flour. So we're going to pop this onto our stand mixer now and just mix it on a low speed until everything comes together. So once it's been mixing for a couple of minutes and everything starts to come together, we're now going to do what's called an autolyse. Now an autolyse is just allowing the dough to have some time to absorb all of that moisture before we start adding things like our yeast. So all I'm going to do at this stage is just cover it up with my lid, or you can just put a tea towel over the top and allow that to soak up all of the moisture from the sweet potato, the water and the plant milk. And then we can come back in 30 minutes and add our remaining ingredients and start kneading to develop our gluten. So we've had our sweet potato bap dough autolysing for about 30 minutes, so it's had some time to start hydrating all of that moisture. So we can add the remaining ingredients. So we have our sugar, salt, yeast of course for our leavening, and our firm vegan margarine, and we want to use this at room temperature so it's nice and soft, but basically the equivalent to butter, dairy-free. Now if you do want this to have a buttery flavour, you can add a butter aroma, and I like to do that at this stage, so you can put a few drops in there. And now we're going to get this onto our mixer. And we'll just start on a slow speed, working up to speed 1 and then working up to speed 2. So the combination of the margarine and the sweet potato puree is really going to incorporate a lot of moisture to these buns, giving them a beautiful, soft and fluffy texture. Now I'm going to bring this up to speed 2. And we're going to mix this until we can perform a window test, or until we get up to about 75% gluten development. So our sweet potato bap dough has actually been mixing for quite a while. It's probably been about 15 minutes or so. It is a very, very sticky dough. So don't be concerned if it is taking quite some time to knead. If it is starting to stick up the sides, you can start scraping it down. Now I'm going to do the window test now, It hasn't completely lifted off the bottom, but I just want to see if we're developing some good gluten. I think I'm pretty happy with that. It just is by its nature quite a sticky dough because of all of that sweet potato. So I'm happy with the texture right now. So it is always good just to check. So let's do the test again. I'm just lifting the dough up and just stretching it out with some wet hands to see whether I can perform a window test. See how we've got some good gluten development, I can see, just before it breaks, so that's perfect. Now I have a container here, which I'm just going to lightly grease with a little bit of vegetable oil. And just transfer our dough inside. And we can see that beautiful colour from that sweet potato. And I like to just flip that over so we get a bit of the oil all over. Tuck the ends underneath itself so we've got a nice smooth top. And we're just going to press that beautiful soft dough into the corners of our container. Pop the lid on. Now I'm just going to mark where my dough line is on the side. And for this dough, we're going to wait until it becomes, again, 1.5 times its size before we put it into the refrigerator to retard overnight. So the reason that we are going to be putting this one into the fridge overnight is it's going to develop more flavour, and it's also going to help extend the shelf life. So the longer that we ferment our dough is also going to add to the extension of shelf life and flavour, and also texture too. We'll give a little bit more chew to our dough. So we're going to leave this out probably for about an hour. Just have a check on it. You've got your mark there. Once it's 1.5 times its original size, it's ready for the fridge. So I've just pulled out my sweet potato Bap dough out of the fridge. It's been bulk fermenting in the fridge overnight, and as you can see, it has risen quite a lot. So now we're going to be scaling and shaping into our buns. So what I like to do is just grab a little bit of oil, just a little tiny bit onto your bench, just so that your dough is not going to stick. And we're going to just deflate our dough. So for the classic or larger style Bap, we're going to scale it 110 grams. So to roll into a ball, just take one of your portions, just flatten it out a little bit, and then tuck all of the corners into the center. Flip it over, and then we're going to roll it into a nice tight ball. So once you have all of your balls done, we're going to roll them in a little bit of flour. So I'm just going to, see, I'm going to flip that over so the top is facing the flour, and just give it a little bit of a roll around. Shake off any excess, and then we're going to flip it over onto our tray. And we want about a 1-inch spacing between. If the flour isn't sticking, you can always spray a little bit of water on top of your buns. Okay, so now we've got those onto our tray. We can set those aside to proof until they're doubled in size. So now we can make our slider size, which is our little tiny buns. And we're going to get out our scale again, and we're going to scale these to 35 grams. So once they're all scaled up, we can also roll these into balls. And because these ones are nice and small, I like to just do 2 at a time. And we just want to roll them into a nice tight ball. If your hands start getting a little bit sticky, you can take a little flour. Of our flour here, we're going to put a little bit of flour on each one. And I'm just putting these ones about 1/2 inch apart. I actually want them to sort of stick together a little bit. Okay, so now they're all on my tray. We're going to set those aside until they also double in size before we put them into the oven. So our sweet potato baps have been proofing and they're just about ready. The large ones are almost ready, but the smaller ones are ready. See, they've doubled in size now. So I'm going to pop those into the oven now and we'll check them after about 10 minutes and see if they need a little more time. So straight into the oven.